Hey, gang, it's Monday, and that means it's time for another episode of Ranching Reboot, the podcast that reboots your thinking about farming, ranching, food systems, and the people that operate them. I'm your host, Brian Alexander, and this is episode 153. This episode marks 3-year anniversary of the Ranching Reboot podcast, and if you've been here since the beginning, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. If you haven't, there's a lot of great content available in the last 152 episodes, plus the bonuses. So make sure you go check out some of that earlier stuff. There's a lot of great podcasts there. I want to give a special shout out this month to Brazos Siebert. Thank you for your support on Patreon. This episode sponsored by Land Trust. Discover the future of land stewardship with landtrust.com, where landowners and outdoor enthusiasts unite for conservation and adventure. Landowners, diversify your income by sharing your land with vetted hunters and nature lovers who respect your legacy. Outdoor enthusiasts, gain access to private, conserved lands for authentic experience. At Ranching Reboot, we value sustainable land use and conservation. Land Trust aligns with our mission, offering a platform to support land health and local ecosystems while generating additional income. Join the movement at Land Trust. Together, we can ensure the prosperity of our land for generations. That's landtrust.com/reboot. Reconnect, respect, and regenerate. That's landtrust.com/reboot, or just click the link in the show notes. My guests today hail from the Ozarks of Missouri, and as usual, we start off with some history and background, and then we dive right in. Ann and Bob Demerath raise grass-fed and finished beef with South Pole cattle. Now, guys, I got to tell you, you don't want to miss this one. Ann and Bob has some shocking results you can't miss. The study we've all been waiting for, the study about the nutrient density of regeneratively raised grass-fed beef compared to grocery store beef. It's all coming right up on this episode of Ranching Reboot. Here we go. Okay, well, maybe Outlook and maybe all the notifications will stop. All right, Ann and Bob Demerath, thank you so much for your time today. Welcome to Ranching Reboot. How are you?
Good. Good. How are you, Brian?
I'm really good. It's a nice, foggy, cool January morning here. Looking forward to some precipitation, and it's been a pretty easy winter. How are you guys?
We are good. It's going to be pushing 70 today, so we are going to throw open windows this afternoon and enjoy that. So at least that's what I'm going to do. Bob will go outside. I don't get outside hardly
ever. Well, let's kick us off here. Tell us a little bit about where you guys are at for context, and a little bit about what you do.
You want to go?
You go ahead.
Okay. So we live about an hour east of Springfield, Missouri, kind of in the central part of the Ozarks here. South central, yeah. We've been here almost 10 years. In April, it'll be 10 years since we made an offer on the place that we're at. We came from Northeast Nebraska. We were conventional row crop farmers up there. Bob was up there his whole life till he decided he didn't want to be there anymore. We did have some cattle back in that part of the world. We had a couple, between 200 and 250 mamas, depending on the time of the year and the weather. We sold that herd out when we moved south, started over. We have a pretty decent sized operation here. We're not huge, but we're not tiny. We're somewhere in that neighborhood of, probably 1,200 grazable acres all told ish. Yeah. And,
running 250 mama cows.
Peppers and yearling on top of that.
That's not bad for 1,400 acres. It must be nice to live somewhere where it rains.
Annual rainfall is 46 inches. So yeah, it's that was one of the in Northeast Nebraska. It was 26. What the annual rainfall was here, I thought, oh my gosh, I can have irrigated pasture without paying for it. So that was exciting.
Yeah, for sure.
We have rocks here that don't hold water like the dirt did back in Nebraska.
It has to rain every 2 weeks, or it gets, we don't have a huge amount of topsoil. So we do need rain frequently to keep it going. Yeah, if you don't get a rain in 2 weeks, it's the start of a drought. So it's not like we're real residual. We're getting better as the way we graze, but we're building soil every year.
Okay. So how do you graze?
We're pretty much move cows every day, all year round. We do things a little differently. In the fall, we actually start feeding a little bit of hay in September to grow stockpile, but we never stop grazing until we never stop grazing. We graze something every day. Right now, in the fast growing season, we graze probably 25, 30 acres every day. And right now we're doing 5 acres a day. We're so from the 1st of September until the 1st of April, we do about 5 acres every day. And then we supplement hay to whatever they need according to the stockpile. We're running pretty close to 400 and some animal units. And for the most part, we can get by on about 3 bales of hay a day.
Okay. I can't do math quite that fast. That's not a lot.
No, they're great. If we had 10 or 12 acres, I don't think we could probably not hay at all. From most places where our stockpile is for that, because we since we're not, it's been a long time since we've been back, around when we slow up in September, so it gets a good chance to grow. And so I like watching them graze every day. Something green, and because we buy all our hay, we're not, most of the time it's halfway good quality, but we're really not sure. So I like to have them graze every day. So we do graze every day all year round.
Okay. You said that you're doing lower stock density during the grazing season on your daily moves. I'm sorry, during the growing season, and that seems a little counterintuitive to me. Can you explain that?
Why?
Yeah.
To keep it in a vegetative state. We try, and it grows faster if you don't take it as short. So we're just trying to keep ahead of it and not let it get too seedy or anything. So we want to go around and just we're basically selective grazing for the first.
You're basically clipping it high and moving on.
There, sometimes they're like, you get in late May and stuff when it's growing really fast, you're not hardly taking anything, and you're just boom bang and you're gone. But it grows back so much faster the more plant you leave behind. We've been doing this for a little while now, and adjusting as we go along, and this seems to be working the best. If we can go around in the spring at like 35 days
around the whole farm,
around the whole ranch,
okay,
and then start over, and then as it starts to dry or get drier, then we slow up and take a little more and give it a little more chance for the rain to come or to regrow. So up until usually, I mean, there's no set rules, obviously, because every year is different. But I would say on average, we probably do that really fast rotation up until about the 1st of July, and then we usually slow them down a little bit. We might go to a 60-day rotation until the 1st of September, when we really slow them up to start growing stockpile.
Okay. That makes sense. I was thinking about, like I think you suggested like a 35-day rest recovery period,
right,
that you want to go around to stay in phase 2. What's kind of like what would be the window for that, I guess, for your rest recovery period on a great year versus a terrible year?
Well, as if you're basically, all you do is you adjust according to rainfall. You know, if I'm going around 35 days and it doesn't rain, obviously I'm going to get back around and I'm not going to have any feed. So
we just adjust kind of.
Yeah, it's
like you kind of pump the brakes every now and then and make sure you're,
you might slow up for a few days and then you get 2-inch rain and you might pick it back up. Temperature makes a difference. Everything makes a difference. Yeah. 35 is minimum. It might be 40, 45. And then usually, like I said, if it turns real dry, we'll probably go at least 60, not longer, maybe 70. But we don't want to take it too short either in the growing season. In the wintertime, I don't care. I'll take it pretty short in the wintertime.
Okay, now I got to know, what kind of grass, what kind of forages are you guys on?
Primarily fescue.
Okay.
We are seeing some fun things pop up though. So to kind of, can I give them a little history of where we were at? So when we bought this place 10 years ago, it was a registered Angus operation, and it was broken up into 91 paddocks. And they would just, to our knowledge anyway, the way it looked to us when we got here is they would just park cows in paddock number whatever, and that's where that cow would stay its entire existence.
Well, they limited rotation.
Yeah.
They did some, but
yeah,
when you're doing specific bulls on specific cows, you need them separate, and I don't know if they ever mixed them back together. I don't know how.
I don't know. There was quite a few feed bunks around, and there was a lot of places where you could have shot a snake at 100 yards pretty easy.
Well, there was 10 of the concrete bunks and 15 hay feeders that came with the place, the circle hay feeders. So that tells you what they were doing.
So
they had like 91 herds.
Yeah,
something like that.
So
could have,
overgrazed and underutilized is how we referred to it for a while. And when we came here to start, Bob was doing 3-day rotations with the cattle. This dude loves these cows, man. He'd rather be out there with these cows most of the time than anybody else, with possibly the exception of me on some days. Some days he really likes me, and some days the cows are better choices. But we started doing 3 days, and then he went to an Ian Mitchell Innes school up at Greg Judy's.
Okay.
And he just came back and he's like, no, we need to do better. He said, we're going to move every day. And man, I tell you what, that difference between 3-day moves and daily moves, man, the stuff that comes up when you leave that, I mean, it's incredible.
And I was taking it too short. I was, 3-day moves. I was leaving them there plenty long. We had a little trouble with fescue foot and all that. Once we switched over to daily moves, we haven't had a fescue foot, or all our cows still have all their tail switches and all that stuff. So we're learning how to manage the fescue. But again, I'll probably throw this out right away because it's one of my favorite sayings. And I believe all ranchers are doing what they think is best and trying to do the best for their land and everything. But you do the best you can until you know better. And then once you know better, you have to do better.
Okay.
So if you know better and ignore it, then that's bad. But if you don't know any better, I won't fault you for that. There's no, I don't blame people that if they don't know any better, they just don't know any better. I take in case point my dad growing up. He did the best he could with the information he had, but he steered us right down the conventional spraying. When we started back in the early 70s, that was all new, and we adopted every principle that they told us was good. And it wasn't. But he didn't know that, and he was doing the best he could with what he knew. So I don't fault him for that.
Well, even your life. I mean, really.
Well, I did.
I mean, we continued down that path from 74 up until about 2000, probably 2012, I think was the year that you went and listened to Gabe the first time.
Is that what changed your mind and started
Gabe
your
Brown. Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Gabe Brown came to our local community college. We were fortunate enough when we lived in Nebraska that Wayne Rasmussen, the guy that kind of founded Grass Fed Exchange with Terry Gompert, lived just a couple miles down the road. And at the time, we all kind of thought that was way too out there. We were like, man, I don't know what those guys are doing, but whatever. It worked for them. Fine.
Pretty much,
Yeah.
just, that was a long time ago, and pretty much, I don't know of anybody in the local community that thought Wayne Rasmussen was a little bit off his rocker.
But that being said,
just because it was different.
It was so different, and nobody was, you know how people are. Different is
different,
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I've met Wayne. I mean,
yeah. But anyway, long story short, Wayne somehow, Gabe Brown was just getting started. I mean, we knew who he was, but that was about it.
Right.
But Gabe showed up at our local community college for a meeting, and he said, I want to go. And I'm like, I am not going to another farming meeting. I've got stuff to do. I need to go help mom out. I need to go to Target, there, get groceries, whatever. I dropped him off that morning for that meeting, and I picked him up in the afternoon, and I didn't even know who he was. He was excited. He was babbling like a little kid. I mean, he just was like, all these things were coming out of his mouth, and I'm looking at him going, who are you? You're awfully excited about this. And that just took him down this rabbit hole, and that was his do better moment. He's like, we can't keep this up. And that's when he started really getting into this this movement, I guess, if you will. And that's really was the tipping point for where we were at and what we were going to do with our future.
How long did it take after you went to that meeting with Gabe Brown? How long did it take before you had a plan to start changing your operation or to be in a different place?
Do we have a plan?
Well,
do we have a plan?
We
or did you ever have a plan?
That's kind of so we had cows, but we were still pretty much farming the conventional way, and we were farming with other people because we weren't big enough to have all our own equipment and everything. And I knew what needed to be done, but I didn't think I could do it.
What do you mean by that?
Didn't think I could do it on my own.
So
because I didn't have the capital, the infrastructure, without working with somebody else, and nobody else, the people that I worked with did absolutely not want to go down this because they thought we would lose too much money. So we basically left. I knew ranching would be the perfect way to do it, the best way. And so we basically moved from farming country to ranching country, and I have too many rocks. I can't farm if I wanted to now. And I think, I don't know if I actually had a plan. I just knew that I wanted to do things in tune with Mother Nature, and this was probably the easiest place to do it. So maybe I bailed. I don't know.
Well, do you want a little history there, Brian?
Yes.
There's a little more than what he's touching on. So we were in a family farm corporation. His parents in 1974 gave him the option, and him and his brother both an option. We can either set you up in farming or you can go to college. And both boys ended up back on the farm, and they set up a corporation, and it was the 70s. They were focused on growth and how do we get from, because when you graduate, what would your dad have, 1 quarter when you graduated from high school? His dad owned 1 quarter of ground when he graduated from high school.
Yeah, actually, he just bought it in 68.
Yeah, so in 1968, he bought his first quarter of farm ground.
Okay.
And so 6-7 years in, they're trying to figure out how they're going to support everybody, and they grew. And they were focused on growth. They hardly got anything for paychecks because everything went back into the farm, but it all worked for a long time. Both boys ended up with families.
We basically ran it for 40 years.
Yeah.
It worked, and then all of a sudden it just didn't work.
It wasn't going to work anymore. So there was no exit strategy. There was no really good retirement option for anybody to get out of the farm. And it just communications broke down as the next generations came in. Communications broke down. It was very awkward and uncomfortable. And to be 100% truthful, in 2012 or 11 or 12, whenever you went to that Gabe Brown meeting, I was watching my husband disappear. And you can clearly see he's not a giant dude to start with.
Right.
But by the time we got the farm split done and we thought things would get better family wise, we all lived in the same section of ground. So it was really hard to not, to not have good communication with them. And
you just look over the tree row and they're right there.
Yeah. And it was awful. But he was down to 148 pounds. I mean, you hugged him and it was like you were hugging a toothpick. It's like, do I even have anything? And am I going to break it if I squeeze too tight?
Bob, was that just stress? You couldn't eat?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I was just sick most of the time. The relationship with my brother deteriorated to the point where we were trying to work together but not talk to each other, and that does not work. And it was just very stressful. And then on top of that, in the back of my mind, I was doing things that I knew weren't sustainable to the soil and the earth, and it's just a overload of things that I just didn't think were right, and things weren't going well. So yeah, basically just the stress.
Yeah. So I
wasn't sleeping very well. Obviously, I'd go to bed at 11 or later, and then at 5 o'clock every morning. If I get 5 or 6 hours, and we moved down here, and I think the first night I slept down here, I slept for like 11 hours straight. It was like we just came to the place where we were supposed to be.
Okay.
So,
I'm not sure. 11 hours of sleep in one night sounds like a distant dream.
It's easier when you don't have a lot of weight on your mind. I mean, if and to be truthful, I mean, this move for us just changed us as people. I mean, we weren't honoring we weren't honoring a lifestyle that we could live with, really. Neither one of us were. We moved down here and things have just changed and opened up and exploded. Contacts have changed. And we also have another saying here: if it's too hard, God isn't in it.
Okay.
And basically we don't really I don't really stress about too much of anything. It's been an evolution or a process, but I've just come to the realization that I'm basically not in control anyway, and I'll do the best I can and to do what I need to do. But if things don't go the way I think they should go in the day, there's always tomorrow, and so it's not the end of the world like it used to be. So.
I just had the thought.
That wet string,
I just had the thought. It's a lot easier for me to accept a failure or something that didn't work when I know I did everything I can.
Yeah.
But it was nature or God that was like, "Oh, this just isn't going to work." Yeah. And I think it's a lot easier to accept that when you've done everything that you think is right. It's a lot easier to accept that versus going out and spraying Roundup and trying to feel good about that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Again, once you know better,
you do better.
You have to do better. And if you don't do better, then it eats on you. So, or it did me anyway.
And I agree with your statement. Like, once you know better, you have to do better. The thing, and this isn't anything on you guys, but I mean, I keep going to conferences and meetings and seminars, and I don't know, sometimes you see the same guys there 4 or 5 years in a row, and they're still asking the same questions. After you kind of get to know them, you ask them like, "So what are you doing?" "Oh, I don't know. I'm still learning. I'm still researching." Like, I've been seeing you on the conference circuit for 5 years, and you're still spraying everything. You're still stocking everything. Like, I don't get it. I don't get it. And So like, kind of like we were talking before the show. Okay. There's a lot of different like brand name grazing systems out there. There's a lot of different schools out there. And most of them are all teaching the same stuff, or they're all talking about the same stuff. And my dad really got upset a couple years ago about, oh, why does everybody, why does everybody got to have their own thing? Why can't everybody just get together and, get together and kind of have a unified soil health and regenerative agriculture? Well, because most people need to hear stuff like 4, 5, 6 times before it sinks in. And the more hearing it from different perspectives is very, very helpful.
Yeah.
Too.
Right.
I agree.
Well,
I don't care whether you call it management intensive grazing or amp grazing or whatever. The principles are all the same. Yes, I agree with that. But yeah, everything is a little different, and you take a little bit from here and a little bit from there, and see what works on your place, and you go with that. I mean, what works on my place, obviously, like you said, you're not gonna be running that many cows on that many acres, but and it's a total different management system. If you had the same number of cows I had, you'd probably be moving them on 100 acres a day.
You could be,
or whatever.
Yeah.
It's all different, but it's all the same, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And kind of another thing that's in my head right now is my friend Bob Kenford. He's been saying this a lot lately. Rotational grazing is not regenerative grazing. Just blindly having a rotation is not being regenerative. Just following a grazing plan is not being regenerative. In order to be regenerative, we need to be taking observations and constantly be making adjustments based on our observations and deviations from plan.
Right.
Yeah, rotational grazing and adaptive grazing are a little bit different. You can't just say, and I'm really bad at that, because I like to have a system, and I like to know where everything's going to be at a specific time. But I will set up a grazing plan because there's only, if you're going around in 35 or 60 days, there's only 1 or 2 days that they're going to be close to the corral facilities if you need to do something, for major events. So I kind of like to have those somewhat planned. Yes. Can it vary? Yes, it does vary. But I'm probably a little bit between the adaptive and the rotational. I'm probably on a little more system than I should be. We're bringing in a few extra people here to try and get me out of my ruts and stuff.
And to give you some retirement time.
With a little bit of different thinking, because I kind of get set in my ways, and I like to do things the same way.
Really?
So
I've never noticed that.
But yeah, I'm trying to be a lot more adaptive. Before
by God, we had a plan.
Yeah, 4 or 5 years ago, it was 45 days year round, just bing, bing, bing. And that was rotational grazing. And now it's more adaptive. Like I said, when it turns dry, then that varies 1 year from the next, when you slow it up or when you speed it up or whatever you do. And it's visual and adaptive more than just setting it up. I still think the most important thing is days of rest for your environment. So that's more, and of course that's what I adapt and base ours on. The more, I've never been in a real arid environment, but you may pasture those once or twice a year in something like that. We're fortunate that we get rain, so we can do it a little different.
I mean,
most of the time we get rain anyway.
Yeah.
46 inches. I wouldn't even know what that looks like.
It's wet. Yeah.
You know what though? It's cool though to watch for me anyway, it's cool to watch it. So we do have our dry times. Traditionally the last few years, September's been a hard month because it's dry and it's crunchy, and it's usually been hot. Now this last one, not supposed to be that way, but we all know that weather patterns are changing. But It's fun to watch what happens when that little bit of rain pops in here, how fast this world that we live in here, how fast it recovers. A little bit of rain, just everything's like, the grass will perk back right back up. It's just, and those are the things that I didn't notice back in Nebraska ever.
But
It's
and we're also our soil and stuff is
Yeah.
getting better every year, so
Yeah.
we're holding more moisture. The drought is taking longer to affect us. When it does turn dry around here, they say you're 2 weeks away from a drought or 2 weeks away from a flood, depending upon the weather, because it can dry up that fast. And I'm seeing that once it quits raining, we've got a longer stretch now because we're holding water.
That and the fact that our creeks don't flood out
Yeah,
near as bad
our
either.
creeks are clear. When we do get a heavy rain, it's not near as mucky as it used to be and stuff like that, So it's observational. We're on a pretty much a headwater, so most of the water that goes through the creeks right here on the place is the water from our ranch. There's not much coming from somebody else's, because it goes the other way once you get on the other side of our ranch. The water does. So
That's kind of similar to how my place is. I'm at the top of the watershed. All the canyons, like all the headlands, all the creeks, they all start on me. And there's only just one little place up in my northwest corner where I've got a creek that starts on a neighbor that comes across me for about a quarter mile and goes out. The rest of it, it all starts and most of it stays on me.
That's the way ours is too.
It's really cool to go to the downstream end where the creek flows off the ranch after we've had like an inch and a half rain, and watch the creek come up like, I don't know, come up like 2 inches and still stay clear. Like that's the coolest thing ever, because I know all that rainwater is staying on the ranch in my soil.
Yeah. And then we have a lot of springs here too, so it might rise down the road a little faster, but it's coming back up out of the ground instead of off the ground, if you know what I mean, with all the springs we have.
Yeah.
They'll start flowing again.
Yeah, it's kind of a fun deal. I mean, like I said, it's this move. We never noticed things like that back there. This move, of course, we're a lot more in tune with
what's going on. Yeah,
a lot less distractions here. So yeah, it's been a fun ride for sure.
No, you said days of rest is most important.
To me, it is. I don't know if that's.
Well, no, I'm not going to disagree with that at all. And it's absolutely critical that that plant has recovery time.
Right. Yes.
Before it gets rebitten, and balancing that recovery time. I mean, I listen to you talk about keeping your grass in phase 2, kind of late phase 2, stay in that vegetated phase. And I think that's great. And I know that's better for animal performance. I've just had a really hard time with that concept on my place because I'm on native range and it's not all just fescue. It's, there are 53,000 different species out there of grass and forbs, and 3 hours less of sunlight on July 1st might set one plant back 2 weeks, and I have no idea why. I think there's managing in a polyculture. There's some challenges, and I'm still trying to figure out because, as we all know, just a little bit of rain, a little bit of sunlight here, a little bit of temperature here can totally change how your forage is going to grow and what's going to grow more volume over the year.
Right. Yeah.
Some years will be more big blue, little blue, switchgrass, any grass, whatever. And I can't sit here in January and tell you what kind of year I'm going to have.
Nope.
Like I can't even get close. Like the best I'm going to be able to do is maybe sometime around the end of February, I'll be able to make a pretty good guess on what I can handle, like upper end stocking rate, bottom end stocking rate. And that's the best I can do. And sometimes you got to stick with that. Last year, gosh, it was so dry last year. I worked with my clients and I ended up kicking that can down the road till almost the 1st of May, which is when I'd be bringing in cattle anyway. And 1st of May, I said, all right, fine, bring them in 2 to 3 weeks, but be prepared to go home in July. I mean, that's a fun situation. Yeah, bring me cows. I might be able to feed them for 45 days.
Yeah. But that's part of what we're all trying to do here with this adaptive or managed or whatever you want to call the rotational group, whatever moniker you want to give it, is you've got to be kind of content aware of what you've got, and you got to be able to roll with the flow, and you've got to have a backup plan.
Well, if I can just say for a minute how I handled that situation. So we talk about adaptive and our days of rest and our densities, right? Well, I didn't have anything growing. Like normally the 8th, 15th, the 21st, those are the days in April that I look at. So we're either early, mid, or late April when things start greening up. Normally it's kind of around mid-April. This year it was May 23rd and everything was still dead. Everything was just brown, crunchy. It was gross. And then it started raining. And all through June, it was cloudy, it was cool, and it rained a lot. And I'm out every day, I'm watching the grass. Like, you just hear this like big sucking sound, just sucking all the water down, and nothing's growing. So I still had my rotations. I was still slowed down. I was taking a lot of grass, kind of clipping it pretty short. But then again, even though we're almost the 1st of June or we're into June, I hadn't seen any grass growth at all yet. So I was still in dormant season grazing mode, which is take it down a little shorter. As soon as I started to see grass, I waited about another 4 days, and then we were moving either every day or every other day for the next 40 days. Because that was the only thing I could think of. I mean, as soon as there's grass growing, we need to let everything rest and just do a quick clip.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you got to be able to think just exactly like what you just said, and think and pray that you're doing the right thing.
And by the way we're managing it, by slowing them back up in September, those fields get a chance to actually root down and grow, because it might be 90 days, but then as long as we keep that rotation and keep it varied from year to year, our pastures do get a chance to actually deep grow then also, because we get growth right up until the 1st of December here usually. Yeah, I mean you'll get a frost, but the fescue and stuff will keep growing pretty much. I always figure about the 1st of December is when it's actually stops growing. You'll get a little growth all the way up till then. But see that all that stuff, like where I grazed fairly hard in September, that's got regrowth on it, but I won't graze that again until April, when I've got new grass coming in on with it. So I'll have a little bit of regrowth as I go around, and then like the stuff where I'm grazing now, of course, I won't be back there until May. So it'll have a good chance to regrow. So yeah, no. So that's it. It works for here fairly well. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if we covered this or not. I know I just made a comment about it, about rest during the growing season versus rest during the dormant season. And so I said that, I take it down a little shorter during the dormant season. And I could get into the reasons and logic behind that, but just like the short end of it is, I just feel it's really hard to overgraze a plant that's dormant for the season and it doesn't have any active growth points.
That's my theory too. I figured, I don't think I'm hurting anything, and I'm taking it obviously very short. If I'm feeding 3 bales of hay and 5 acres and having 400 animal units, there's nothing left out there basically. I mean, there's no bare soil, but it's pretty darn close. I don't want any bare spots, obviously, but and I also you got to watch your animal condition too. Obviously you don't want to make them too hungry or have them losing weight or whatever.
Right.
Because they all still have calves on them right now. I don't wean until 300 and some days, so we're not weaning spring calves until middle of February.
Okay. How many of them have weaned themselves when you bring them in February?
About 3/4 of them, probably half to 3/4, I would say.
That pretty much tracks with my experience of leaving them 10 months on the cow over winter.
Yeah.
So just to go backwards a little bit, the reason I started to get unafraid of overgrazing in the dormant season is all the burning that we've done. All right. Look, I know I talk about burning all the time on a podcast. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it today, but when we burn here in the Red Hills, it's usually late March or April, sometimes down to the 1st of May. And, if we burn on the 1st of May, sometimes it's a little difficult because the cheat in the cool season grass is coming. And about halfway between you and me, we got the Flint Hills, where they burn 1.5 million to 2 million acres every year. And you think about what that is. And when you're burning, you take all the above ground biomass and you completely defoliate it. So when that grass starts growing again, when it gets a little bit of moisture the 1st of May, it's got nothing blocking it from getting great sunlight. So it puts up all these great solar panels real fast. So a complete defoliation event towards the end of the dormant season stimulates new growth next season, is what I learned from that. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, if I take a paddock down a little short in the wintertime, as long as it gets moisture and 2 weeks without animals, it's perfect.
Yeah. I never thought of it that way, but again, the logic is pretty much similar. If there's no photocell out there to grab, I mean, it's all dormant, like you said. There's no the leaf matter doesn't really matter, because at least that's my opinion. I'm not a plant guy that much, but if there's no green leaf matter to absorb the sunlight, if it's all dead anyway, what's it going to hurt to take it off? As long as you don't take it down so that you got bare ground erosion and that kind of stuff, or
Right.
You got to leave a cover, obviously, but
I mean, if they're ripping up your plant crowns,
yes,
you should have moved them 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. But I mean, like what we're doing, we're just moving them every day. Very seldom. Like if we got a 60-acre pasture, obviously we're stripping it a lot, but they don't really go back and read on the other one. That even though they've got to have access to it, because they just keep moving forward. And then I don't have a problem with it. I don't know. I haven't seen any detrimental effects. Let's just put it that way. I think it greens up a little faster, like you said, and things get going. So once we hit the 1st of April, we just take off. If pretty much growth, account. I mean, we can. It varies. It doesn't vary much with 10 days, 5 or 6 days off of the 1st of April. I don't think I've almost always increased my speed and took off at either late March or early April. I don't wait very long, because it usually rains and it's growing like crazy. And if you don't get started, you might think you're starting too soon, but by the time you get to the last one, it's going. So it's kind of a, again, experience judgment thing.
Yeah, and you have to be prepared to be wrong.
Yes.
Yeah.
And admit that you made like a catastrophic error in your grazing planning, which I've done more than once.
I think everybody has. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So before the reason I really wanted to talk to you guys is because you've had a nutrient density study done on your beef. And before we get into that, like, how do you categorize it? How do you market it and sell it? And what claims do you make about your beef?
Well, we are just touching the tip of the iceberg on this meat sales thing.
We actually wanted the information so that we could go forward with it. We didn't want to start a program and not have the information, I guess. So we're really just very infantile in the meat business. Not just dipping our toes, basically, you could say. But we wanted to get the testing done so that we were hoping it would be better than average.
Well,
because of the way we graze it, it made sense to me that if the soil's improving, then the health of the animal should be improving, which means the meat should improve. But I didn't know that without the testing, and I'm not going to tell you that and say, well, it should be better for you, but I can't prove it.
And let me backtrack there a second. Getting the nutrient density testing done was a lovely surprised gift for us. There's no way we would have pursued this probably on our own at this point.
Is that because of cost?
Yeah, it's expensive. And getting your foot in the door with the guys that are doing the testing, that sort of stuff. It's kind of it's not what it's who you know situation, I guess, so to speak. I don't know how else to explain it. So what we did is since we kind of started down this quest, we've been looking at a labeling scenario for us. We all know that everybody's counting on labels now. I'm wearing one this morning. You're probably wearing one this morning. Chances are Bob's got a label on this morning. We're kind of a society driven by labels, but the certified organic, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but it just wasn't going to be for us. It just wasn't going to work. We looked at the Audubon certification, but that's pretty tough. Their requirements for having native grasses is
in our area
is not, it wasn't going to work. We were going to go broke making the native grasses and then not be able to have any cattle on it if we would have done all that. So
Audubon does have some small holes to jump through.
Yeah. They do.
And we have a lot of, like we said before, we have a lot of fescue.
And
that was one of their main things for the birds, that you're supposed to try and get rid of fescue.
Yep. So that one wasn't going to work. We looked at a couple of different options, and then along came Regenerative, which, are you familiar with their program? I mean, Alan Williams, Gabe Brown. Okay, so
hit the wave tops.
Okay, so everybody knows, or not everybody knows, but a lot of people know who Understanding Ag is. It's Gabe Brown, Alan Williams, that crew.
I mean, yep. I would assume if somebody's listening to this podcast, they've at least heard of Understanding Ag and have a passing knowledge of who they are.
Yep. So the high points of this is those guys offered a labeling program, a certification
program.
So another division of Understanding Ag, if you will, is Regenerative. It's separate but not separate, if that makes sense. And it's a tiered program. Levels 1 through 5 are where it stands currently. What they do is they come out, you apply for the program, they interview you to see if they can serve you, and you can, if it's going to be a good fit. They come out, they do water infiltration tests, soil tests, plant diversity, ask you tons of questions about your procedures, few other things in there. They don't always get everything done depending on how many acres you've got, but there's bug counts and bird counts and things like that. And we interviewed with them, and the guys came out and did some testing, and we got our initial results back pretty quickly. It was within a month or so after the guys were here. And we actually entered in the program at tier 5.
But this is this isn't just a program for ranchers. This is a program for regenerative agriculture. They have vegetable farmers, they have
Grain farmers.
they have everybody, and they're trying to encourage the whole thing. It's not just a ranching thing, the whole agriculture industry community to go regenerative practices.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
Yeah. Anyway, so we entered in at tier 5, which is the highest level, and we got that back, and we were like, all the work is finally paying off. I mean, tier 5, we were like, holy crap, how did that happen, right? And then through that tier 5 certification, Regenerative actually offered us the nutrient density testing. They facilitated it, they handled it, it was them. We got those results back, and we're completely blown away at the results. Completely blown away.
So back to the certification process.
Oh yeah, they come back and they reevaluate.
And they're going to come back every year,
yeah.
And if you don't maintain or increase your levels, like of what they're testing for, you will go up or down in the tier level. So it's a really cool program because they want you to get started. So that's why they tiered it. You can start, like if you're a grain farmer, they just want you to start putting practices in, cover crops, whatever it takes, and work your way in. Because it's like I talked earlier, it's tough to do it in a cropping world where you're used to doing monocrops and leaving it bare and doing all that. It's a transition. So I think that it's really structured well. Obviously, being a rancher's, it's a little easier, but there's limits. They want you to limit your hay harvesting, which is hard on your soil. So yeah, the regenerative practices are really encouraged, and you can just keep going and work your way up from there. But you can't just sit on your laurels and say, well, this is good enough.
Well, we got it. Yeah, we got it.
I've got it and we're done. Because if you don't try and keep getting better, which we all want to do, you're always playing with the formula and trying to improve it. So I think it's a great program. It lined up with what our vision is as far as soil health and the improvement of the planet, and honoring the creator that gave us this land to work with for this short period of time, and to leave it better for the next generation. So it lined up with us, and their vision and our vision, I think, are very, very similar. So that's why we were so excited about it.
Yeah. Awesome. I have my recertification paperwork for Audubon right here. It's gonna have to take care of that later today.
Yeah. So anyway, when the nutrient density testing came back, we've been sitting on it now for probably 6 weeks, maybe.
How hard has it been to sit on those results and not just be streaming them everywhere?
Our friends and family are probably sick of seeing the little files that we whip out on our phones whenever they're around. We're going to release our results publicly here very, very, very shortly. We had intended on getting it done this week, but we were just coming off a pretty busy time. So hopefully we're going to get our little video shot and get it out there. The final results for the whole public to see, but it's I don't want to seem dramatic, but it was kind of staggering to us to actually see how good and how good for you the meat is. But
I've got to ask, is there an apples to apples comparison? Do you have any of that data?
Yeah. Yes. So what they did is they tested our beef, which is grass-fed, grass-finished. Now that grass-finished, let me clarify that because that gets people all excited.
I don't think ours were grass finished.
What do you call finished?
Well, I fed cattle on corn, and I know what a fat looks like.
Yeah.
And I don't think they were to me, in my opinion, I don't know if they were finished to have the right marbling and that kind of
They're
stuff.
awful good.
They're good.
But you're also comparing corn fed to grass fed. So
in my mind, and they were darn close.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
I'm probably going to get myself into trouble from saying this. Okay, but I'm going to say it anyway because it's my podcast and that's what I do. I don't think there's such a thing as, quote, grass finished. There's just an animal that's been on pasture on grass its whole life. Finished is what you call an animal in a feedlot that has been fed to diabetic organ failure. They're finished because if you don't process them, they're going to die from organ failure. Like that's what finished is to me.
Okay. All right. Well,
I would agree.
I would say there's a more degree of marbling that you can aim for. Let's go with that.
With different plant
with that line. I think if you watch for fat on the tailhead and stuff like that, some of ours do great on just what we have, and some of them do not. So I would say, I mean, not that they do terrible, it's just that they don't have that quite the marbling that, one's going to be a little bit different genetics. Our genetics are not all the same. We have several different species or different varieties of cattle here, so it runs different, but it's getting, as we go about it, it's getting better. But I
got a real rabbit hole here.
Yeah, the finished thing. I don't know if you, I don't know how to describe. It's just an eye thing that you can see, where they've got little fat things around their tail or on their hip bones, and some of them don't, but they've been around long enough that they should be ready to go, so they go.
Yeah. Anyway,
they're all grass fed, and growing up, raising a lot of corn and finishing cattle on corn. I used to really bash the grass fed because I thought it tastes funny. Well, it does taste different. I'll grant you that. I don't think it tastes funny. I think it actually has more flavor.
It's got a higher flavor profile.
Flavor of place.
Yes.
I believe the flavor is different, and I think it's a richer, more a better flavor. But that's again your
opinions.
That's your opinion.
When you eat your own meat, and like you take a bite of it and you close your eyes, do you see a picture in your mind of where the last few paddocks that cow was in?
Well, most of the time I'm just thinking it's pretty damn delicious. So.
No, probably not. But I know it's really hard to eat beef out now. Normally I'll eat pork or something different because the beef does not meet my palate taste no matter where I go.
Let me go down a little side trail of what you just asked for. When I eat our meat, I know that animal has lived its good and full and potential life, and it's been well cared for, and it's had high quality forage its whole life. But do I see it? No. But knowing it's had proper care and feed its whole life is important to me. Yeah. Does that answer your question a little bit?
I don't know if that's an answer that I needed or just discussion. Yeah. I think what I was kind of getting at is, I think I was just sitting here thinking, I think we have like parts of 5 or 6 different animals in our freezers right now. And there are 3 different locations that they were, quote, finished at, like the pasture that they were in for, where they were for the 30 days before they went to the plant. And all these animals, like, they subtly taste different. There was a group of 4 that, kind of all came out of the same pasture and went. Then there was two that came out of the same pasture a month apart that went. Then there was another one that was just, he was with the herd basically. And they all taste a little bit different. And what I'm trying to get at, and it sounds a little hooky and a little woo-woo, is when I eat the meat, I know which one of the animals it was from, and I know which pasture it came out of by how it tastes.
Yeah. So that's probably a little bit different between operations because ours are in every pasture.
Well, what I'm saying is like the last couple of pastures that they were in.
Yeah,
like
well, they're only in the last couple of pastures for 2 or 3 days. It's not like they're in the last pasture for a week or a month or whatever, because they're not in the same pasture. So they're getting a mix of everything on the ranch every day. So our difference between animals is probably not as there isn't as much variety or difference between animals because all the animals eat the same thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. And maybe
I don't have as much diversity either.
No, probably not as much diversity as you have either. That's probably true.
And I think some of the difference that I have with these different animals is when they were all processed, because it's
that would make a difference. Yes.
Yeah. What time of the year?
Especially with us in the fescue and stuff. Yeah, it does make a little bit of difference.
Yeah, like the only time I really want to harvest an animal is kind of August through October.
Yeah, well, we like to have the forage growing fairly well, so I don't mind July ones because they've been on really good grass for a couple months.
I sent a couple at the end of July this year, and it kind of bit me because everything in June, we didn't really have a lot of growth in June.
Yeah, you didn't have the growth. It's best if you have growth. Yeah.
I only had maybe 2 or 3 weeks of gain on them at that, when they went to the plant. So they're a little small, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, ours is probably a little more. The taste difference would be more seasonal than it would be different pastures, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, let's get back to the study. What does it say? I got to know what it says.
So the study actually says that if you want the nuts and bolts of, can I go backwards for just a second?
Yeah.
You asked about how they're comparing it. So what they did is they took our beef versus the average grass-fed beef. And I'm assuming, I don't know this for a fact without doing some questioning, but I'm assuming they just went and bought grass-fed beef from a grocery store for their comparison. Brian, I got to pause for a second. Sorry.
Okay. Well, we'll pause it. We can take a little break.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Every once in a while we need a break. Okay. So let's recycle back to the meat study, the nutrient density study.
Okay. So you asked earlier about the comparison. So I don't know where they got their 2 sample pieces of meat, but they compared us to regular grass-fed, like I'm assuming what you would buy like at Whole Foods is labeled grass-fed or whatever grocery store you go to. And then they compared us to conventional beef, which I'm assuming is feedlot.
Okay.
Regular ground beef, corn-fed, whatever you want to call it. So
grocery store meat case.
Yep, grocery store meat case. They tested it for lots of things. And the nuts and bolts of it really are that if you want the same nutrient density in your grocery store purchase versus our meat off of our ranch, you would have to eat 2.7 times the amount of meat. So our one hamburger versus 2.7 of others.
To get the same, let's say the same amount of protein or
they measured
the phytochemicals, however you want to say it. Yeah.
Amino acids and cholesterols and fat and whatnot.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
2.7. That is shocking.
Can you see that? I don't know. Is there too much glare?
Yeah, there's too much glare.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, 2.7 times. The other huge thing for me was carotenoids, which are the precursor to vitamin A.
Okay.
We are off almost to the end of the bar graph.
Well, it's 69.9 milligrams per 100 grams of
carotenoids.
Carotenoids, and the national average is 0.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what we saw. I don't know. Yeah.
The other fun one was B vitamins. So there's actually the whole thing is fun, but B vitamins don't even show up in regular grass fed. We are 1.155 milligrams per 100 grams. And in the national average, which is your conventionally fed beef, more than likely pushed through a feedlot where they're pushing rations and vitamins and all that other stuff. They're at 1.318 milligrams per 100 grams, where they're pushing it, and we don't push anything. We don't push it. We don't have a vitamin B supplement here. They're getting it everything they want out of the plant.
Okay.
So are you following that?
Yeah.
The omega-6 to 3.
That's
Yep.
what everybody wants to know about.
Right? We are 1.19 milligrams per 100 grams. Grass-fed average.
And go to conventional.
Well, if you go straight to conventional, they're 6.55 milligrams per 100 grams.
Okay. Is this a lower is better or higher is better?
Lower is better.
Okay.
Lower is better. This is your golf score.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's 6 to 3. So if it's lower, it's better.
Yep. So there you go.
So ours is 1.19 and the average grass fed is 1.77. But it's crazy.
But yeah, the study was done through the University of Utah. Stephen Van Vliet, or however I'm sure that's not how you pronounce his last name.
Well, Fred's out there too, isn't he?
And I think that's where Fred Provenza is at too. So it's a pretty high profile meat lab.
Okay.
And so far, everybody that has seen this study result has went, oh, wow.
I mean, from what we hear from, understanding ag, from holistic management, from, American Grass Fed Association, they all make the claims. Grass fed's better for you. Grass fed's better for you. Better omega-6 to 3 ratio, better B vitamins, better flavonoids, phytochemicals. 2.7 times as nutrient dense. That is shocking. I wasn't expecting that, honestly. I was expecting something like 20, 30, 50% better, not 2.7 times better.
When it came back, Brian,
that's a goosebump moment, to be honest with you. I said, holy cow. And this was just, I can't even tell you what animal this came out of for sure. We just took a hamburger, ground beef out of the freezer. And so it wasn't like we selected one that we thought would do better or whatever, because there, like I said, most of our consistency is fairly similar through everything. So yeah, it totally blew us away. It really did. We weren't expecting anything remotely close to that. So that, that word gets out a little bit through the Regenerative thing. I mean, people are going to want to buy what we have. So it's not, and we're talking everything from restaurant chains to whatever we could provide. If we can provide that kind of meat and they can throw that up there.
And that's not just us.
Well, no.
The term we collectively.
Well, I'm talking we as Regenerative.
As Regenerative producers,
once this gets a little more mainstream and people realize that ours is 2.7 times conventional, but so is every other regenerative ranch. Or whatever they are, but I'm sure we can get a regenerative average once we get going, and it's going to be way better than conventional because of the nutrient density that we eat.
Yeah.
So It makes sense. I just didn't think it would be that high. I'm with you. I thought it should be a little bit better than conventional, just because of the soil health that we've fostered here, but I didn't expect it to be quite that much.
It's pretty, yeah. It's really humbling, to be truthful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just sitting here thinking about like the amount, like a serving size for me at home is not even half what I would eat if we went out to eat. I mean, we make our burgers small, we make our tacos small. All right, I eat too much chili, but generally when I'm eating my own beef at home, it seems like I don't need to eat as much, and especially if we're augmenting that with stuff that she's grown in the garden, or that our friends have grown.
Yep.
And I know that the grass fed, that the beef that I've raised is more nutrient dense than anything I'm going to eat in a restaurant or anything I'm going to grab in a store. I know that because my stomach tells me that. My brain's telling me that because it shuts me off early. It just says, hey, you're full. You don't need to eat anymore. But go to the burger joint in town, have burger and fries and a little bit of Coke. I'm gonna eat the whole dang thing. I come home, try to eat the same size burger out of my meat, and I'm gonna maybe get half of it down, and that's it.
Yeah.
And it's just, I'm blown away 2.7 times.
Yeah. Can you imagine going to just pick your favorite drive-through? Whether you're gonna grab a quarter pounder or a Whopper or whatever. Can you imagine having to eat 3 of those essentially
to get the same nutrient,
to even,
we don't need to imagine it anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, you have the results.
Yep.
And we look at what people eat, and I think about this, that American portion size. If you go anywhere else in the world, people are just amazed at how much food we get on our plates here.
Mm-hmm.
And to be fair, somewhere north of 75% of the young people today are too fat and sick to join the military. That's kind of a deal.
Yeah.
And adult onset diabetes is one of the worst epidemics ever. Why? It's back to our food. Well,
cheap food is expensive. It's just real. Yeah. Cheap food is expensive.
Cheap food doesn't have nutrients in it.
Yes.
I mean, a lot. Okay, so the cheap beef is raised, they feed that beef basically nutrient devoid food. I mean, just carbs and sugar, right?
Yep.
And when we process things like, when we process our grain to make bread, okay, you got to mill the germ off of it because all that, adds a little bit of flakiness. We need that better texture. So we got to mill it super fine. And we want it white. So we got to bleach it. And we take all the minerals and nutrients out. Oh, but we're going to put those back in. We're going to add those nutrients and vitamins back in it to make it healthy for you. Okay, great. They've taken all the nutrients out of it, tried to put synthetic nutrients in that aren't bioavailable. And then people eat these empty calories that are full of sugar, salt, and fat. And we wonder why everybody's getting diabetic. Because we're not feeding people. We're just giving them carbs and sugar. It's the nutrient density. Like the body, I'm gonna get over my skis here pretty quick if I don't watch what I say. Listen to some of the guys that Joe Rogan has had on over the last 4 years, and they talk about like how metabolism actually works. Like, just because you eat a food that has LDL cholesterol in it, that doesn't mean your body that doesn't elevate your LDL cholesterol number, because your body takes that chemical, does something to it, and then it enters the bloodstream as something else. It's like you're saying, vitamin A precursors. And maybe it is vitamin A, and some of these vitamins, like, they're only bioavailable when they're made inside the body. It's like you can't eat some of these vitamins and absorb them into your body. They just go right out the waste stream. So I guess what I'm getting at is this nutrient density thing. Like, it's been on my radar for 3 years, at least 3 years. People talking about the better increased nutrient density of not just beef, but also garden produce from, regeneratively grown produce and, soil health focused gardening systems.
Yep.
And I don't remember. There was something about there was going to be a nutrient density tester that you'd either like, it was either phone sized or it was going to be an app on your phone and maybe a little plug-in module. I think I haven't seen anything about that lately. And that'd be like a wonderful technology. And maybe there's a reason why it's not getting to market, is because the people that are be funding it know that it's going to kill all their market share and kill all their share value, because nobody's going to want to buy nutrient devoid crap food anymore if they can actually see what's in it for themselves. We talked earlier, you said you did this test, you wanted to do all this testing process as part of developing your label. Did I capture that correctly?
Yeah, just
and I totally get that. I'm gonna let you finish. Labels piss me off. When I go to the store, the brighter and shoutier the label claim, the less I want to buy it. That being said, being able to make a claim on a label that, we have 60 times the vitamin A precursors. We have, a 400% better omega-3 to 6 ratio than conventional beef. And having results to back that up so you can actually put that on a label is huge, because that leads to people asking questions and being educated on the retail level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So back for us, what made us pursue that is, you live in an ag area too. Everybody and their dog has cows where we are at. And everybody and their dog has a freezer full of beef. And pretty soon, as well as I do, that you've got last year's beef in there that's still got 3/4 of it. And you got another 2 head that need to go to the locker, and holy crap, we need to have a fire sale. So here it's very common to be able to buy burger for anywhere between $3.50 and $5 a pound right off of a farm, let alone go to a big chain where they're running $1.99 specials or whatever it is. I don't know. I haven't bought meat in years, so I don't know. But we were pursuing a label to kind of validate, and not necessarily pursuing a label. That's probably the wrong thing. Pursuing the proof that, look, we're out here busting our butts to give you a good product, and we can't go broke doing it, because if we keep going broke, we're not going to be here in a year or 5 or whatever. So this is why it's worth more, because as well as I do, if you go to the grocery store or anywhere and you see something on sale for 99 cents and the same product right next to it is $3.99, chances are you're going to gravitate toward the 99-cent one, especially in today's world where groceries are so stupid high. But it goes back to that line that you mentioned before, cheap food. Cheap food really is expensive food, because you're going to pay for it one way or the other, whether your healthcare costs go up, or you've got to buy new clothes every year because your pant sizes keep changing, or, or dead when you're 50 because you've eaten shit your whole life. Sorry, that was a bad word. You've eaten crap your whole life.
You can say that word here. That's fine.
Okay. We needed the validation, I guess. Really.
And again, I know you said you don't like labels, but
we're driven by labels.
I don't like the fact that anybody can just throw anything out there and not have it supported. Any different than the meat claim. Yeah, my meat's better than yours. Prove it. Okay. All my stuff is raised regeneratively. Prove it. Well, that's what we did. We basically did the regenerative labeling so that we could prove what we're doing. We've got the results. We got the test results. We got the water results. You want to see them? I'll share them with you. I am doing it. I'm not saying I'm doing it. I've got the results to say that I've done it, and that I am doing it, not that I've done it. But that's the importance of the label to me, is that it's proof of what
Third party certified.
Basically, and I believe it's credible, I guess, for lack of a better word. Some of these other certification programs don't cost you anything. You just fill out paperwork or whatever. This one here, you have to be committed. It's expensive to do to get a Regenerative certification.
I wouldn't say it's expensive.
Well, it's not.
There's a monetary investment.
Yes, it's not cheap, but it's not. It's probably not. Yeah, that's probably
not a great word. There's a monetary investment from the rancher's side as well to be involved. So it's more than just.
Well, I'm going to fill out the paperwork and you give me a certificate and we're good to go. You know, I didn't do anything besides answer your questions.
I mean,
nobody come out to verify that I was doing what I was doing, or whatever.
We're Regenerative there. I mean, these guys were boots on the ground, and
they were here.
It was freaking hot when they were here. It was
guys
like
out
100
here,
degrees that day,
and it was all day. They were out here from
8 in the morning till 4:35.
They ran about out of light. I mean, they were here all day long. Two guys, and they'll be back again next year doing the same thing over again.
So
yeah, it's
a very well, in our opinion, it's a very well thought out, worthwhile certification to pursue. The guys, the people at Regenerative have been fantastic to work with. They have marketing people to help you with marketing. They've got farmer outreach. They've got a guy that is just doing nothing but figuring out how to source things for people right now.
There's businesses in the country looking for this now because they're, I mean, they know that the regenerative movement is really taking off with the movies and the documentaries and stuff. And so there's big companies looking for Regenerative products. And so they go to Regenerative,
say, how do we get better?
Say, where they at? Where they at? Put us in touch with the guys. So they're putting them in touch with their producers that are certified, so that these companies can say we're buying from certified regenerative ranches or farms or whatever for our products. And
well, case in point, Maker's Mark bourbon.
Okay.
Maker's Mark, just within the last, I don't know the exact time frame, but last fall, sometime in fall, winter, they just started a certification process where they're going to source by a certain date, and I don't know what the date is off the top of my head.
I think they've produced their first barrel.
Yeah, first barrel of bourbon from certified Regenerative product
from a
farm. Let me look it up here quick. And I tell you.
I'm just thinking it'll be interesting when they start marketing that, and how long it'll be when they start marketing that. Because I mean, bourbon's got to age in the barrel for a while.
It's going to be a while. Yeah, it's going to be a while.
I can't get on there. I can't look up the date. It's on the Regenerative page, on Facebook. But I mean, there's a lot of big name corporations that are paying attention. I mean, with the upcoming release of Common Ground nationwide, I think the demand's just going to get bigger. I mean, there's a huge celebrity train involved.
Oh yeah.
You know, Kiss the had a big enough celebrity train. Common Ground looks like it's even bigger. I haven't seen the movie yet, but you know, go ahead.
I've gotten to see a couple parts of it, and it's good.
Yeah. You know, and then Roots So Deep, the Peter Bick docuseries is
fantastic.
Fixing to come out again, you know, and the Roots So Deep team is just doing fantastic things for getting this word out. I mean, we had a screening here. We did a last minute deal after Peter was at our field day this year for work. I told him, I'm like, man, we need to get this out to the people in my area. I mean, it's, you know, and he's like, let's do it. He said, send in a request for a screening. Let's get it done. So within 4 weeks time of me meeting Peter, we had him here. And on a Monday night, the night before Halloween, in the middle of absolutely nowhere, Ozarks, Missouri, We had 125 plus people show up for a screening in a little church that was 20 miles from everywhere. And we fed them just a light dinner. We went into this little church sanctuary, and you could have heard a pin drop for 2 hours. And people were there till after 10 o'clock that night on a Monday night in the middle of nowhere. People are starving for this information. They want to know. And they want to know how to do better.
I agree. It's a movement. It's a momentum. The movement is just gaining momentum, and we're getting more and more support all the time. More and more. I mean, these test results, I'm shocked. Maybe we can talk offline. If you would share a copy of that with me, just for my personal information, because I'd really want to look at it. I'd appreciate that. If you can't send it over yet, that's fine too.
Yep.
Yeah, that's amazing. I was expecting it to be better, not that much better. Just
well, I'm glad we delighted you as well as us.
Yeah, it was pretty much a shock for us, that's for sure.
But yeah, it's the results started to filter in before we got the physical file back. The results were filtered in over the phone, and I'm telling you, every time the phone would ring, I'm like, you know, I mean, it was amazing to be able to. And it was almost one of those pinch me moments, like holy buckets. But that goes back to that statement that we said earlier, if you got God in the middle of it, it's going to work out. And we've really changed our focus to work with what he's given us. So at least that's how it is for me.
Well, yeah,
I think, but.
And it's really rewarding to see the land, the soil and stuff change and improve, and
see the wildlife come back, birds.
We've got quail up the yin yang, deer about running us over here. We are attracting things, without trying. So that's fun. It's fun. It makes, and of course, moving a bunch of cows, people that have never done it don't realize how easy it is.
Yeah, like, I don't have time to move. I don't have time to move cows. Like,
hey, can you imagine? Somebody says, talking to a conventional rancher, and he said, well, how many cows you moving every day? And I said, well, there's about, between calves and everything, there's probably 400 animals or better, close to 500 in this group. He says, how long does it take you to move them? I said, well, if it's just the pasture right next door, about 15 minutes. It takes me longer to move the mineral feeders than it does the cattle, and I don't care if I went out there 2 hours after I moved into knee-deep grass. If I showed up out there, they'd move again.
Yep. You got to be careful about when you show up, and and how you go in and interact with them if you don't want them to move.
Yep. It's tough because
you got to listen to them moan and groan the whole time you're out there, whining like they're dying.
It's and it's fun. I mean, there's nothing like letting them go through and shutting your rig off and hearing that grass get tore off.
The munch.
Yeah, you can just sit. I listen to that all day long. It is so cool, and this time of year, I get a big kick out of looking at the density too. You put 400 animal units on 5 acres, and they're just all out there, their heads down and just grazing away, and they're pretty thick.
And then when they leave, they're leaving all their,
That's like 80 some thousand pounds per acre.
Yeah, it's not quite. It's not 100,000 pounds, but it's pretty thick out there.
80,000 pounds an acre on a daily. That's pretty good. That's pretty intense.
Yeah. So we do that for well, I guess almost half the year. That's where we get our density and our high fertilizer usage, is between that September and then after that, then we're just flipping grass and
trying to stay ahead of it.
soil.
Yeah.
So But yeah, it's a pretty picture. I like it anyway. I don't know. People like to see them spread out over a large area, and some people like to see them all jammed in small. So
It was funny. We had a lady come to the ranch. We have a new kid that's working with us. And his daycare lady comes out here every day, and she drove past the first day, and she pulled up here and she asked him, she said, "Are those cows supposed to be in that small of an area?" It's like,
they had the
yeah.
whole pasture to
Yeah.
run over, but we just give them another 5 acres, and they were
He
all
was
on it.
very concerned that they were trapped or something.
And that's a question you'll only really get from somebody that doesn't know anything.
Mhm.
Your neighbor
Yeah.
that has cows, he's just going to really wonder, why in the hell they got them locked up between all those fences? Why are they standing shoulder to shoulder?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I got neighbors
Yeah.
like that too. They don't listen
Yeah.
to the podcast.
No.
I bet not. Most of ours won't listen to this
Well,
one either.
they
So
don't.
we're good.
Yeah. But I mean, it's funny though. The people do. I mean, they're watching what you do, and I just hope I would somehow we need to get Peter Bick's docu series out.
It's
So
coming.
so that
It's coming.
somehow we need to get it into the mainstream so that people can just, again, it's the same thing like we talked about with the certification process. I can tell you that my soil is better, that the animals are healthier, I've got more birds and all that, but unless you come out and look, you're gonna say, well, yeah, sure, he's just saying that.
Yeah.
Well, the Peter's film says it right there. I mean, it's black and white. It's got the facts, it's got the carbon, it's got everything. It's got the science behind what we do. And I think that to me was about as exciting as anything. The actual physical documentation. We can see it. You and I both can see what's going on. And it's out there. But to have somebody document it and prove it is amazing. Just absolutely amazing. And that's why we were so excited about getting him here and getting him out into the public a little more.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the answer is, because some people just don't want to hear the message too.
Well, it's gaining traction. I mean, if you look at the views on the YouTube stuff that Peter's got out there, and the Instagram stuff and the socials and stuff like that, it's just exploding, and the screenings are picking up. He's doing another screening here in the Columbia, Missouri area on the 19th of March. And I'm expecting we'll fill that venue. And like I said, there's, just tons and tons and tons of stuff that's happening out there, and people are catching on. But like you said, to have that quantified, the way it's quantified and written so deep it's kind of irrefutable. You can't really, you can't really debate it, because it's so black and so white and so easy to understand.
Well, I think some of it is backlash from carbon cowboys and people saying, well, you got to prove it. Or, well, that's just that one place. The guy next door is doing it just as good and he never moves his cows.
Right.
So going back and trying to find places side by side as apples to apples, regenerative versus conventional, and doing the testing like he's done. That's
Yeah.
And the testing like you guys have done, like it's all the things that we've been lied to by big ag, just for lack of a better, not to pick on anybody, but just all the lies that have been told about what is and what isn't. And now the truth is coming out that we've got labs that can test meat for nutrient density. I think it's awesome. Like I appreciate you guys coming on. I appreciate you sharing your results. Appreciate your time today. How do we want to end?
I don't know. I mean, I would encourage everybody out there. I mean, I realize that your market is probably pretty targeted. I mean, but anybody that's listening to this, if you haven't looked into any of these things that we've gone down, check it out. It's eye-opening, and it's incredible to dive into this world and see what we can do to change it. The everybody's all worried about climate change across the entire planet, and we can change the world here if we all jump on the same wagon. You know, go start going down some rabbit holes. Stop scrolling through mindless stuff. Start watching some of these YouTubes and get lit up about it. That's what I would encourage people to do. And if you've been doing this forever and a day, do you think you know it all? Keep looking anyway, because I promise that nobody knows everything. So, I don't know.
Every year's different.
Yeah, and just know that, like, we're here. I mean, we're not the answer to end all. We're not the answer to everything, but we can direct you to some, resources. We're always happy to talk. You want to come hang out at the ranch? Come on down. I mean, we'll give you a tour and, do whatever. That's like Bob said, do the best you can till you know better, and then do better.
Do the best you can until you know better, then do better. I like that.
Yep.
I like that. What do we need to put?
No, it's not original. I read it someplace. It's not original. It's not original. I won't take credit for it.
Okay. Well, it's become your life motto.
I really like that
Yeah.
motto though,
Yeah.
because you can't blame somebody for doing what they think is right. Because I've been there and done that, and I'm not going to beat myself up over it. Do I wish I would have went down this path earlier in life? Absolutely, but everything happens for a reason, and you connect the dots afterwards, and here you are where you're supposed to be.
You are where you're supposed to be. I was trying to do something with that, and I couldn't think of anything. Where can people find you if they want to know more? How can people get in touch with you? Where do you want to? Do you have a website? Anything?
Yep. Clearspringranch.com is our website. We've got to reach out. There's a holler us form there that you can fill out. That's probably the easiest, most consistent way to get a hold of us. We try to check emails at least in the mornings every day. I think our phone number's listed on there. I don't always answer that line because it's become a political spam line. But leave us a message. We'll get back to you. Email is missouriranch@gmail.com. Guess that about sums it up. I'd give you cell phone numbers, but half the time Bob's cell phone doesn't work when he's outside, and mine rings enough with South Pole business. So
if you want me to have them, you can send them to me.
If
you want me to put them in the show notes, I will, but generally I wouldn't do that.
Yeah. No. I'll send them to you so we can take care of the other things that we were talking about earlier too.
Perfect.
So, but yeah, we're open to any visitors, and we're always glad to help. We wouldn't be where we were or where we are without people helping us along the way. We've had a great team of mentors and continue to have a great team of mentors, and we're trying to build a great team here, and we're here to help in any way we can.
Yeah. I mean, basically 10 years we came down here and we started completely over, because this is nothing similar to what we used to do. I mean, absolutely not. So we've made a lot of mistakes. So I'd like to tell somebody what they are so they don't do the same thing. Save them some headache if we could. That would be great.
Fair enough. I don't like watching people learn the lesson that was painful for me to learn.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just have to watch that. Sometimes you have to let them do it.
That's true.
Yep.
Very true.
Sometimes you got to get out of the way, for sure.
All right. I think that's a great place to end. I think we're going to get out of the way and let y'all have a go have a great week. So
you too. Hey, I'll message you those phone numbers.
Awesome.
Thanks, Brian.
Yep.
See ya.
Have a great week.
You too.